Welcome everybody to this session here in the wonderful Three Lions Bar. Hope you're enjoying your day so far. My name is Batson. I am the host of this wonderful panel called Rising Stars, celebrating early career success stories. And as much as I love to talk about me, we're not going to do a lot of that today because we've got four wonderful people here who are going to share their stories with you. So here's the plan. I'm going to introduce them and then they're going to talk about themselves a little bit more about their career to date. And then I've got some questions for them. We're going to have a bit of a conversation. If you do have any questions yourselves, because we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible, please just raise your hand and we'll come to you. I'll also leave a few minutes towards the end as well if there's any more questions. So if you're feeling a little bit shy midway through the session, you'll have a chance at the end to ask your questions. Around about 11:55 or so, I'll kind of bring everything to a close because you guys have got to go elsewhere. Of course, housekeeping rules remain. This is a safe place. What says here can stay here. Of course, please feel if you want to share, please do that. If you want to talk about something specific, please do that as well. We're all here to listen and encourage each other. If you hear the fire alarm, of course, follow the staff. They know what to do next. Don't grab bags or anything, leave your back jacket, stuff like that behind and just follow the staff's instructions. And of course the hashtag, which is Women in Football, WIFB inspired, or Women in Football on its own. Of course the tag is Women in Football for all your socials stuff. Does that sound cool? Excellent, I love the nods ahead. Right, so my name's Anne-Marie, I'm your host, I'm a sports broadcaster, I work in football, men's and women's football, I dabble on a little bit of tennis as well, I'm a bit of a Jill of all trades, if I can call myself that. I'm hosting this session and you've got Lois, Rebecca, Sameena and Maria. And as I said, rather than me telling you guys about these wonderful people next to me, I thought they can tell you a little bit about themselves, starting with Lois.
Hey everyone, really nice to be here today. A little bit about myself as to where I am currently. I'm definitely more within the grassroots side of the game. I'm currently a football development manager for a sports association and we are currently the biggest, we oversee the biggest grassroots club within our county, currently around 50 teams which I support with at the moment. And then I also wear another hat which is a head of a charitable foundation called the Croft Foundation. And it is a charity which tries to provide football opportunities for everybody, no matter gender, age, ability. We try to offer some sort of sporting activity within our venue.
Nice one, thank you. Bex.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you all today. My name's Rebecca James, or Bex as Anne-Marie formerly knows me. I am the founder and director of Limitless Sports Consultancy. We're a PR, media and personal brand consultancy for athletes. I've been in the industry for over 13 years and I've worked at a few different clubs along the way, so we can speak a bit more about that later, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Sameena.
Hi everyone, I'm Sameena. I work for EA Sports FC, previously known as FIFA, the football game, and I work in the football partnership team. So my job is day to day to work with our football partners, such as the Premier League, WSL, and some of our club partners as well, to activate partnership rights, but also create new and innovative marketing assets.
Brilliant. Maria.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. I'm Maria Xing. I am an investment professional at a sports investment fund called 777 Partners. We also invest in other industries as well, but my primary job is to work with our football clubs that we own in a multi-club ownership group.
Brilliant. Let's stay with you, Maria. You can kick us off, pardon the pun. How did you get into football?
So some of you may be wondering how I got into football because I clearly don't sound very English and I'm from a country where football is still growing in popularity, the US. So growing up, my family moved around a lot and my parents would enroll me in a bunch of sports, and one of the sports that I found a huge passion for was football, and the primary reason for that was the community around it. My parents also liked watching football, so there was also a bit of, being able to communicate with them about that and relate to them. So grew up a huge fan of a certain Premier League team up north, and then eventually had the opportunity in a very interesting way to work for them, and attended my first match at Anfield and was completely fell in love. So that's how I got into football.
as well. Sorry, Pippa's just distracted me. Hello. That's all right. Good to see you. Sameena.
So I started working for EA as an EA games company, and I worked across a variety of our gaming products, including The Sims, which if anyone's played, I loved The Sims. I loved working on that. Got to work on some of our shooter titles, but then 50% of my time was also on sports, including FC. And the minute I started working on that product, I just kind of found my place. I really liked how quick moving it was. I really liked working within football, but also gaming. And if anything happened on the pitch, we then integrate it into our marketing assets, but also the game itself. And I really felt like I found my place, and then also my people. And what I really liked about it at the time is I didn't see as many people like me in the room, but I thought the only way I'm going to be able to change this is by being in the room itself. And just being a part of that change, and that really drove me towards it. And yeah, really found that kind of football community.
Sounds cool. Bex.
So I've been in football for my entire career, for, as I said, for about 13 years now. And I actually just loved football. My dad was a big football fan when I was growing up. So I found a passion for the way that people could connect with each other through football. And actually you could travel to anywhere in the world and suddenly you can have a conversation around football and you've got like a common ground of someone. And it's also an escape for people, you know, away from stress and pressures. So I decided to go down the club route initially and be able to give something back from a club perspective. I originally was working unpaid for a while at different football clubs and eventually worked at Arsenal for 9 years in our communications team and then decided to start my own agency a couple of years ago.
Brilliant stuff, which we will talk about in a bit. Lois.
Yeah, so in terms of how I've got into football, I'm very much at the start of my journey with football. I'm currently sitting in my first footballing position. So I kind of have to backtrack into maybe like the education route of where I've come from. Very much school was not for me, as I'm sure it probably is for most people in here. Very much a practical person. The admin side of stuff just isn't my expertise, may I say. So school didn't really work well for me, struggled at school, never really kind of had the exit route of where I thought I was going to go. So I finished school, went into college just because I had to really, ended up doing a sports college course, and then I came across, which I know we're going to talk about later, someone that I would class as now a male ally, not that he knows it. And he kind of caught me at the end of my college journey and was like, what's your next steps? And I was quite open and said I didn't really have any. I wasn't really quite sure what I was going to do next. And he sat me down at the end of a lesson once and said, we can't lose you from the game. The way you talk about it, your passion for it, and the way that you apply yourself to our sport lessons, we've got to try and keep you in it. And that was a conversation that we have, and he said you need to go off to uni and you need to study sport at uni, and specifically football. And I remember he called me back to his class the next day, and he said to me, I'm going to sit with you and do your uni application. And I was sitting there dreading it, thinking I cannot do uni, I can't even do my homework, not about a uni assignment. So yeah, he sat with me, he did the uni application with me, and he said, look, let's just see if you get it. So he clearly saw something in myself that I didn't. Eventually ended up getting accepted into uni, and not only did he get me there, but then he supported me throughout my uni career. Lots of breakdowns along the way, but eventually finished uni, ended up with a degree, and then I eventually found myself working for an organisation, probably mainly at the time through a degree on my CV.
I'm going to stick with you for a second, Lois, because you were talking about, you referenced like male allies, and your boss is here today. Where is he?
He's going to hate me for this.
That's all right. No, that's good. I think it's really important because it's important because the topic here is about talking about if you're good enough, you know, building a budding career, building a big reputation in football. How important has it been to have somebody like your boss and other male allies around you to support your dreams?
Yeah, we were having a conversation just before we started around this, and I know Monique spoke about it yesterday. In the room for those that were here yesterday. There is a difference between a male ally and a mentor, and I'm very lucky, and he's going to cringe at me saying this, that I've got two for the price of one. And today I've got a male ally that's sitting there being my number one supporter in terms of me delivering, and it's credit to him because he's clearly in an interview stage for something in me to give me the opportunity to go and excel myself in football. But then I'm sure tomorrow I'll be sitting in front of his desk and he'll talk to me about my public speaking and how I can get better at it. So it's two for the price of one. I think you rely on those people, and especially with the topic that we're talking about in terms of rising stars, and we spoke about this before, is in this football industry, it's very, very hard to make your way or to find a way in. And you rely on somebody either seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself, or at least giving you the opportunity to go and excel yourself. And that comes from us believing in what we do, and stepping out of our comfort zones and maybe going to try and get a job in something that might be a little bit out of our reach at that time, but you've got to believe in what you think you're capable of, what you're going to bring to a company or a business or an organisation. But also you have to look from the top down, and us as young people in the industry, we rely on somebody that's already there to see something in you, to go and give you that opportunity to go and do it. So yeah, in terms of what I have in terms of male allies, they're very, very important in the female game, but also to be a mentee as well, because they've got to keep you on track and keep you grounded, but also keep striving for different targets along the way.
But they can also drive you as well. When we were talking yesterday, Bex, about your story about Leyton Orient, which I'd love for you to share with everybody, give everybody the other side of it when it doesn't, Lois has had fantastic support and it will continue, I'm sure. But yours at the beginning wasn't necessarily, but it actually gave you a bit of a spark and a bit of a drive to tell people.
Yeah, so basically when I was studying my first degree, I was the only girl on a 30-person course. And I found that there was repeated issues being aimed at the guys on the course. And there was one particular opportunity at Leyton Orient, it was an unpaid role. But it was on the ground experience working in their media and comms team. And the lecturer at the time aimed it at all of the boys on the course. And I was like, I'm going to go and get that job. And went and interviewed for it and got the role. And I was saying to Anne-Marie and the girls yesterday that the award for getting the role was a pack of beers. I don't drink for a start really, and I don't drink beer. So it kind of gave me that firepower in my belly that like there was clearly an opinion that it wasn't going to be a role for me, but I managed to get it. And I worked unpaid for like 2 years whilst doing my degree, purely because I knew that the experience was going to be really beneficial long term. And it was a hard slog, I'm not going to lie, but there I had some good male allies when I was in that role, and it actually counteracted the experience that I had in the degree, and it didn't put me off. And I think now that I look back, I wish that there was more events like this where we could all sort of share experiences and motivate each other and support each other, because I could have quite easily dropped off course and dropped out. But yeah, taking on that opportunity was the best thing that I ever did, because it really set me up well for my career. And it just proves that, sometimes you have to back yourself and step into a room that you're not necessarily initially welcomed in.
Bex has brought a really good point up, actually very good points all the way through, but towards the end about backing yourself, Maria, you were talking yesterday about working in finance, and that's a challenging industry in itself, particularly in the world of football. Talk to us about the cultural differences that you've had to face and the success stories that you've had from that.
Yeah, so it's been really great being a part of the Women in Football Network, because I've met a lot of like-minded women in football, but on the other side, like there are a lot of other industries, and Sameena and I were just talking about this earlier actually, where it's a bit more traditional and a bit more behind. So the work that I currently do, I'm an investment banker by background, and I currently work in private equity. So my work in football is a little bit adjacent, even though I focus on the football clubs that we own. But it's been a bit challenging because it's kind of a double-faceted industry, and having allies on the football side, they might not necessarily understand all the difficulties and challenges that I've had to go through on the finance side. So having people on both sides to kind of back you and support your journey, I found to be really important. And if anybody out here is also interested in a football finance career, please come talk to me after, because it's definitely an area that I think there's a lot of room for growth in terms of gender equality.
How have you found the cultural differences?
Well, coming from America to the UK, this is very specific, but I feel like Americans in general are a little bit more direct, whereas some of the English people that I've worked with in our London office tend to dance around certain topics and not really want to relay how they actually feel. And to me, that can, make things drag on for much longer than they need to be. So I actually took, the Women in Football Leadership course, and one of the main takeaways that I had from that was being, having intent with everything that you do and saying what you want and not being afraid to speak up for what you want, because everyone is really busy. They might not even know that you feel, isolated or neglected sometimes. So it's almost like on you to also put yourself out there and get your voice heard.
Sameena, you were talking we were chatting earlier about cultural differences as well,
Yeah.
and we're now into this, into Ramadan, as we know.
Yeah.
How have you approached that in your work life, but also the differences of the demographics working in gaming as well? You're probably working with people with different ages, and you might be working with people older that you're having to delegate stuff to, am I right?
Yeah.
How have you managed that?
It is really difficult because it's kind of two worlds coming together in what I do, because it's gaming and it's also football, and two very different worlds, like equal issues in terms of like gender balance, but also diversity. And I always felt that, we're definitely moving strides within gender balance, and we're really trying, but I think people do sometimes feel a bit nervous to address diversity as well. And coming from a dual heritage background, Pakistani background, it does clash a lot with the British culture. And it's something that I've always kind of worked with growing up in terms of who I am, my identity, and in the working world as well, kind of who does that put me as in the working world and who I can be and bring up with me as well. Working on things like the Midnight Ramadan League campaign that I did was kind of, I really found my place with that campaign, because I could use my background and all the knowledge that I've kind of got from growing up in a Pakistani family and also input it into my job. And I never thought that I could do that and that would even be possible. And it is thanks to the people that I work with, because I was quite junior at the time when the campaign came around. They didn't need to give it to me, and the colleague that I worked with, but they came and found us and were like, you guys know what this is like, you tell the story. And I think it's partly down to the success of the campaign is everyone behind the camera either had lived experience or understood it and had really taken the time to understand it. And I think that's when you can get really impactful campaigns if people understand it behind the camera before you even get filming. I really found my place in that. And I think it's definitely a journey. I have like really good moments where I found myself finding my identity, then some bad moments as well. And we just feel like I don't belong here, this isn't my place. But I really feel that in the football industry, we're making such great strides. Like particularly in the team we've got at EA now, we're such a supportive family network now. That I didn't necessarily feel that at the beginning. And we've built that from having a diverse team around us from lots of different perspectives.
Brilliant stuff. Any questions so far from what you've heard, everybody? Yes? I don't think we've got a mic, have we? No, you have to shout for us if you wouldn't mind. Tell us your name, by the way.
My name's Oscar.
Nice to meet you.
And this question goes to Sameena.
Oh, hang fire. I think we actually have a mic. Thank you very much.
Hello, so my name's Arsia, and I'm like the ambassador for Nottingham to get more South Asian Muslim women into sport. My question goes to Sameena. It's like, I'm also from a Muslim Pakistani background, and I find that seeing the younger youth coming up, it's good that the EA support you in what you do, but they feel that there's still not enough rising stars in football in itself, visually available. So for them, it's seeing is believing. So to go into this industry, whether it's in work or on the pitch, what do you think? I know what I would want, but do you feel that it's moving? Because I feel like because football is going at such a high pace from where it was to where it's going, I just find that the gap is getting wider and wider, and I feel that unfortunately it will be a continuous catch-up game, and in that sense there will be opportunities that will be missed out, and girls and women that will lose in the process. So
I think it's acknowledging the barriers as well. Like I said, I spoke about that culture clash. Like even some of my family now, they're like, you work in football, why do you do that? Because my mum's family growing up, when they lived in Leeds, football was scary for them. Like it was terrifying. Like when Leeds United were playing, they would get in the house and they would not leave. and they have grown up in that culture. So I equally understand why they would think football isn't a welcome place. But I think it's about educating upwards in terms of family members, like in the younger generation, communicating that like football is changing, it's becoming a lot more welcome. We've definitely got more things to do, but it's definitely becoming a more welcome environment. But I do think for younger girls, particularly younger South Asian girls, there are lots of barriers, because there's a culture barrier in terms of girls playing sport as itself, and then there's that barrier of being in football as a woman. And I do think that from an EA Sports point of view, we really try and counteract that with gaming. We know that gaming's in with a younger generation, and we do have a great audience that are younger. And we kind of use that as a barrier, because anyone can pick up a controller, similar to like kicking a ball, anyone can do it. So by breaking that barrier and getting them involved in the game first, how can that then encourage them to get on pitch? And we are doing a lot of work around that at the moment, following some research that we found that if you do pick up a controller in game, you are more likely to then go kick a ball in real life, which I think there's definitely a stigma around gaming stops you from doing physical activity, but actually with this younger generation, it's doing the opposite. So I think there's definitely strides and a lot more we can do. It's not a simple solution, but I think the younger generation, the power that they have is really key. I think they're going to change big things.
I think that's very true. I will open the floor again for questions towards the end. Hang fire. I'll come to you first. How about that? Yeah, I've got you. I'll remember. Sameena's kind of addressed this in her answer already, so I'll come to the rest of you guys. Maria, I'll start with you. Why? Why did you decide that football was the career for you?
Well, as I mentioned, growing up, I was a huge fan of the sport. It was something that I could speak to with my parents, as well as the community around me, and it really struck me how passionate everyone was about this industry. And my first work experience was at Liverpool for their social media digital strategy team. And that opportunity was actually given to me through Twitter because there weren't that many fans in the US at the time, so I started a Twitter account. Eventually it gained a decent following, and then the head of digital development at Liverpool reached out to me on Twitter asking me if I wanted to run the US social media. So I was an 18-year-old at this point, and so of course I said yes. It was such a cool gig to have, and it wasn't really like a real job, so there were no downsides, nothing to lose. So I did that while at university, while kind of focused on my skill set and building my skill set in finance and banking. So I kind of took a pivot from football after graduation when I went to hone some of my more hard skills and technical skills. And I always kept that love and passion for football in the back of my brain, because I knew that I wanted to go back into the industry one day when I had gained more skills and felt more confident in my task, or in my roles. So it wasn't until after my grad program that I eventually got back into the world of football. But I think to answer your question, Anne-Marie, it's all about the passion in the community for me and organizations like Women in Football.
Thank you. That's a really great answer. The reason I'm asking the why is to realise at such a young age, like you're 18, you could have gone and done anything, but to decide that a career in football was for you, and I guess that's the same for you guys as well. Bex, with you, let's start with you. Where did the why come from?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it was just kind of understanding what would get me passionate every single day. You're getting up and you're going to work for a long period of your life, and I've always sort of felt that if you're passionate about something, you're more likely to enjoy it, and therefore you're more likely to be successful in it. But yeah, for me, quite personally, I had a brother with severe disabilities, and me and my dad, that's the only thing we did together was go to football. And the way I looked at it was an outlet for people, and I found that really special that football can be a place for people to come together and share an experience which actually is so beautiful. So actually, if I could have a role in that space and make a difference in it, hopefully help diversify it as well, then we're in a good place. So that was kind of my initial feeling on why I would get involved. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. I guess for you, Lois, it's being out on the green grass. Yeah,
the why for me is probably playing in a boys' team until under 12s. I think that's probably where it's at. In terms of, like I've mentioned before, I'm very much an on-the-grass type of person. And I just remember playing I'm sure everybody's probably got similar stories of playing in a park in an under-12 boys team, until very much lucky enough to get scouted for Ipswich Town at the time, and then I entered the elite pathway for the women, but or for the girls at the time. But I look at it as I was very lucky to be able to enter an academy system in a girls-only environment. What happens to those that just want to play for fun? I took it a little bit more seriously and wanted to try and get as far as I could in terms of playing, but there is an absolute place for football for those that just want to play for fun, and it's a social side of it. Keep active, make friends, the list is endless. So yes, the why for me and everything that I do now in terms of coaching or opening up new programs on our foundation is what can we offer that maybe hasn't been offered before, or can we make sure that there's something in place, especially for females, from an entry level point of view. So the FA programs like the Wildcats and the squads, we've got 5-year-olds come in, and then I get to kickstart their football journey and give them a positive start, and then hopefully keep them in the game, and then who knows where they end up in terms of if they want to carry on playing or they enter an industry off the pitch. But my ultimate job and the reason I do it every day is to provide the entry platform for people to come and grow in the amazing industry.
Brilliant. So it's like the common thread is all about the passion for the game. So Sameena, for you, I guess the question is, you know, you're in this space now, in football and the gaming space. The one thing that we were talking about as a group was like to get across to everybody in this room that this is very much a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
How would you describe that in your world? That you've reached a certain level, but there's other levels that you still want to attain.
Yeah, definitely, and it is definitely baby steps, small steps. So like even when it comes to what we were discussing earlier in terms of improving diversity, we're not going to get there tomorrow. But I think even being at an event like this feels like we're making so many progresses in the right direction. But yeah, in terms of a career path, I will fully admit I didn't even think about my career because I loved what I was doing so much. I was just skipping around, like I like what I do. People want to talk to me about goals. I was like, what's a goal? Like, why can't you just let me love what I do? And it was actually my mentor who kind of woke me up to it. She's like, look, you need to think about your pathway. Where do you want to go? And I actually sat down and had a proper think about it. And it was thanks to her that I did that. I think just to kind of keep an open mind in terms of what's out there and what's next. I kind of want to do everything. So that's why I struggle to put down a bit of a path. But yeah, again, like I think that's why events like this are so important. I've already learned about so many careers I didn't even know were possible. Like I always say, I didn't actually dream about this job because I didn't know it existed. I didn't know you could work in gaming and in football. Now I'm in it, I kind of dream of it backwards and I really enjoy what I'm doing. But yeah, I think that's also part of it as well, about understanding what is out there so you can then plan your next step.
Maria, same for you in terms of this is very much a marathon, taking it day by day, and there are going to be some challenges along the way, of course.
Yeah, totally agree. I think one of my biggest flaws is that I'm a bit impatient. If I want something, I kind of want it now, and I can't just snap my fingers and be CEO of a football club, right? As much as I wish that could happen. But I think one trick that might work for you guys, it definitely worked for me, is just going on LinkedIn and looking up some executives in the space and seeing how exactly they got to where they are, and trying to emulate those steps, or even reaching out to those executives and having a conversation with them. I don't know if Ebru is in the room, but I slid into her LinkedIn DMs a couple of weeks ago, and she gave me some really sound advice that I've been following, and her career journey has really been inspirational for me. So I like to kind of think of my life in like 3 and 5 year chunks in terms of goal setting and planning. And that's something that has also worked for me. Like, where do I see myself in 3 years? Where do I see myself in 5 years? And then 20 years down the line, what is the ultimate goal in terms of beyond career, but also life, general happiness, and all of that as well.
Brilliant stuff. Same for you, Bex, as well. But also added onto that is how important are events like this in terms of your business, networking and meeting people?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've gone from working in, big football organisations with many people around me every day to starting my own thing and being on my own a lot of the time. So for me, having a really strong network of supportive people is absolutely everything. And thankfully, I have that, but I'm always looking to expand it and to be able to connect with like-minded people. And I think that is really key with whatever your ambition is in this sport, you know, to make sure that you're supporting each other and you're part of that community. But yeah, in terms of sort of the wider question, it's, for me, I'm one of those people, I'm never done, I'm never fully sort of settled with where I am, but at the same time I'm enjoying the journey, and I think that's the really nice motivating part of it, that actually you can step back and say I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing day to day, I'm on the journey to where I want to be.
Are you enjoying the journey, Lois?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to kind of link both of those questions that you've just asked together, I think one thing I will say is, and it comes up in loads of kind of events and stuff I go to, is like, just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And again, going back to this, the rising star topic is, you've got to know your self-worth, you've got to know what you're good at, you've got to know, because you work hard to be good at what you're good at, right? So you've got to know that, but what you've also got to allow yourself to do is just be open to change, or open to maybe a different avenue. If you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be heading up a charitable foundation and a football development manager managing people, that wasn't an option. As I've already outlined, at school, administration, like that side of it wasn't for me. I'm out on the pitch. But being led by, again, going back to the male allies and the mentoring, is they find stuff in you that you don't know about yourself, and 9 times out of 10 you go and ask your friend for some advice, and they'll tell you something, you're like, I can't do that, but your friends see stuff in you that you don't. So I think, to link both questions together, find out what you're good at and stick with it, because you work hard to do it, but also let people guide you, because at the end of the day, what is there to lose? Like, I've gone down some avenues where I haven't enjoyed it, and I've said thank you very much, but I won't be partaking in that anymore. But then other stuff you just add to your palette. And in terms of just kind of keep progressing, is what can you bring to yourself, and what can you add to your palette that you enjoy, take away the bits that you don't, and then you start to kind of build your round self. So yeah, just keep feeding back to that, be comfortable being uncomfortable on your journey up.
I'd also add to that about celebrating the little successes along the way in some shape or form. I think for me personally, I got so stuck on this idea in my head of thinking, right, by this date I want to achieve this. And then when I hadn't achieved it, it was a massive disappointment to me, because I thought I'd failed, when in fact I hadn't recognised there were actually little you said baby steps, Sameena, you mentioned, yeah, baby steps. There were baby steps I actually took. I didn't achieve the ultimate goal, but at least I took two or more 3 steps forward than I thought I could have done. So for that, I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to go and buy myself a nice pair of shoes to add to the many shoes that I have already. But it's, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of celebrating those, you know, we talk about celebrating early career success, but it's also celebrating those little milestones, however you want to do that, of course, along the way. And then having, like you said, the 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan. I think I'm in year 5 for mine. But do you know what I mean? It's also celebrating those little, just to give yourselves those little encouragement as well. Great stuff. Okay, so time now for some questions, and there was a lady with a lovely burnt orange top who's right in front of me, I'm sorry to embarrass you, who wanted to ask a question. So you wouldn't mind telling us your name, your question, and who it's for as well, please.
Yeah, I'm Hannah. I'm the founder with Kate of a sports analytics company, 12 Technology, and we're in almost our first year anniversary. We were independent consultants before that.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And we're looking to grow, and my question's for Maria, really. So we're thinking about the next steps, investment, and we've seen some statistics around startups that are female-owned, and investment being really small proportion in those categories. Is that something you've ever come across in terms of bias in investment industries, and do you have any advice for us on how we can try and counteract that?
Yeah, of course. First of all, congratulations on launching that company. It sounds super cool, and analytics is such a hot space right now, so best of luck going forward. I think the name of this panel is like, if you're old enough, you're good enough, or something like that. But like in a similar vein, like if you both look quite young, I'm probably not supposed to, ageify anyone, but no matter what, your gender, race, whatever is, if you're good enough, you're good enough. And I think number one, you have to, be passionate about your product, but you also have to really know what you're talking about. And there's also implicit biases that, are unfortunately still in society. So you just kind of have to be 10 times smarter than the male in the room that everyone might ask questions for. So as long as you have a really compelling story, Like, we investors love hearing founder stories, your backgrounds, what makes you tick, what your vision for the company is, and you lay those out really succinctly, then I don't think you should have an issue with that. And I'm happy to, you know, chat with you after this about your investing needs.
Brilliant. Analytics is a big thing. Huge.
And I think it's great. Like, the whole space right now is being taken by like the Genius Sportses of the world and the sports radar. So it's great that you're trying to, you know, make a difference and change.
Yeah, here. I had a question about lady at the back, the pink top, please. You'd like to say your name, who your question's for, please.
Hi, I'm Naomi McGregor, the founder of Move True. So mine actually is slightly leading on from that last question, that we know 1 to 2% of VC funding goes to female-founded businesses. We also know there's a regional problem with grassroots level funding, that about 60% of grassroots funding goes to London, while 1.9% goes to Northern Ireland. And we also see that there's only a fraction of club spend is going to the women's sports compared to the men's. So overall, across investment and sports, we're seeing that the women are the last point of spend. How do you think, like all over the panel, Anne-Maria, that how do you think that we can actually make sure that funding is going to female-founded companies, female sports, and actually make that change instead of having only one female to showcase, so that we can actually easily have a gender diverse panel and make sure we're bringing up the next generation as well with that?
What a great question. And in fact, I'm actually writing a funding application. I was writing it last night. I thought, I can't be doing with this. Right. And I actually put in a stat about the number of VCs, etc., about the lack of going to females. Yeah, great question. Who'd like to, do you want to have a go? Yeah, go back.
I think from my experience, I've worked across men and women's football for plenty of years now, and I've seen the growth of the women's game at the elite level, and I've very much enjoyed being a part of that growth, actually. And so now for me, as a female business owner in this space, I've taken on a client of an agency that has completely removed all of their male clients, and they've made like targeted action around helping support the growth of the women's game, and being able to give those young female athletes the best sort of preparation for an elite career. And of course, we can't change the world, but even by those sort of small decision making, and you know, for me to be able to take them on as a client, I'm giving my expertise to them as well, and these young female players that some of them aren't even professionals yet. And then I've got athletes that are literally superstars in the Premier League, so, and I'm giving them the same attention and support. So I think it's just, if everyone can kind of have those sort of small steps moving forward, then it's going to support the entirety of the sort of the diversity all the way down to grassroots, hopefully. And it's just, yeah, at every club, every organisation, kind of having that same decision making and process in place, it will help.
Maria, have you got anything to?
I
feel like it's another
I did have a point. I kind of lost it. Rebecca's points were, you know, very interesting.
No, fair enough. I feel like it's another ceiling that needs to be broken.
Yeah. So the VC world has been, you know, predominantly male, and this originates all the way from Silicon Valley. But I think there are women's-focused investment groups that, if you're a VC or if you're a startup wanting to raise VC money, you should definitely look into and try to become a part of. I can give an example. This is less VC and more growth equity, but how many of you guys have heard of Mercury 13?
I saw them on the news yesterday.
Small number.
I know,
yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
So they recently announced the acquisition of their first women's club called Coma Women, and there's never been a female-focused like investment group that specifically invests in teams before. And I'm really excited to see what they do, but it's groups like that are really going to drive a change in the industry and are definitely worth keeping an eye on for the future. And if you can, you know, get the chance to talk to one of those guys, they're amazing. Sorry, guys and gals.
No worries. And I take your point actually about what you were saying about the funding, about being predominantly for England and Northern Ireland, and I think that's something that really needs to change quite quickly. It should be equal across all the regions. That's my 2 penny worth on that. Any more questions, please? Yeah, lady at the front there. Like, say your name, who your question's for, and what your question is, please.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I am the site manager for Queen's Park Rangers Football Club. I am very fortunate that I've come from an industry where I work in facilities and operations. So not only am I in a sport that is predominantly male, but I'm also in an industry that is male. So I've come into Queen's Park Rangers, and I've gone from an industry where I've had to prove myself through education and banging on doors. Now I'm at QPR, and they're part of our biggest supporters, and they're pushing for female inclusion, which is great. The only thing that we're looking at now, which I find is slightly difficult, is progression. Women's football is becoming big. Women in football is becoming big, but progression in football isn't great. So, for instance, there's been a couple of roles that I've gone through previously, not through Queen's Park Rangers, but educationally, I'm there. I've got the qualifications. I'm banging on doors, but a male has got the role. And I'm not saying for the males in the room that you shouldn't. I think it doesn't matter of your gender. If you're good for the role, you're good for the role. What would you suggest that would be a good representation of, if you're going for a role, what could you advise that would make people stand out more? If you're good for the role, you're educated, you're striving for success, what would you say would be the best thing that will make you stand out more than anyone else?
I'm going to look at you, Lois.
That's a really tricky question.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because you said it within your question. The role should just be picked on based whoever is best fit for the role. I think I've kind of mentioned it. It's just around probably that personal development. Like, what can you do outside of your work that you can add to your CV that, again, just makes you stand out? So, and it's not a pun or anything, but the Women in Football leadership courses and bits and pieces like that. I think the reason I would probably recommend something like that is they're also female-only environments. So you get a lot of females that will talk about their experiences of how they've maybe got there, or people that they've spoke to, etc., etc. So I think one thing would be, what can you add in terms of your personal development? But two, I would probably say that networking around, can you speak to other people that have probably experienced the same, or have tackled it and have found a solution or a way in, I think is probably where it's at. I think it's really hard because across any job or something that you're trying to apply for, that is it. What can you offer that makes you stand out? But also in this room, if we all applied for the same job, how do we all stand out from each other when we're all females? So network and get yourself on some sort of personal development courses, and female only ones if you can, because you'll, especially with the Women in Football one, I think the first day of the level 1 and 2 they talk about the storytelling, and honestly it's unbelievable. I know you guys have done it as well, and they talk around how you can leave an impact on people. So what can you do in a room that will emotionally connect you with somebody that when you leave they are forever thinking about what you've done because you've connected with them on an emotional level. So that might be the case in terms of interviews. What can you do to connect with somebody that they understand where you're coming from, rather than just what you're going to offer the business, because you're going to offer them something because you're there because you know you can do it, but then what can you maybe offer that connects with them as human beings and stuff. So leadership courses definitely, or networking in female-only environments.
Brilliant.
Go on. That's okay. I also think it's understanding your fresh perspective as well. I think for so long when I came into the industry, I was trying to be like my male colleagues, trying to mimic them, their behaviours. Like even when working with players, they're like, "Oh, you're right, mate." Like, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I can be your mate. I don't know if that's just part of like my brand of who I am." And I felt like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do this job because I'm never going to be like my male colleagues that haven't got their characteristics." But I started to realise actually the perspective that I can bring is different, and I can give a different vibe and bring my own kind of personality to it. I don't have to blend in and be exactly like them, because physically I'm never going to be. And I think it's understanding that perspective that you could bring that company, organisational club, that, you know, a male counterpart probably couldn't. And also I think it's about mentors and networking and having someone in that room on that interview panel who can help bring you up with them and recognise you. I think it's really, really important and really powerful.
Yeah, great question. We've got time for, I knew you were going to ask a question, Bibba. We've got time for one more. We've got a microphone coming to you, my dear.
She doesn't need it.
Mine's actually very quick and easy for everyone.
Go for it.
Just what's been your personal highlight of your career so far? Whoever wants to start first.
Maria, let's start with you.
Personal ally?
Personal highlight of your year so far.
Okay, so I think it was actually last year when, you know, my parents, my whole life, they've been really supportive of me. They wanted me to be a doctor. Sorry for the stereotype, but I didn't choose that route. So last year, for the first time, I brought them into the owner's box at Fenway in Boston, and they're, you know, I grew up in Boston. We're massive Boston sports fans. So to be able to give them that experience for the first time, I could see in their eyes how proud they were finally of me, and it was just, you know, the highlight of my experience. And also the Red Sox won that day. I don't know how many people watch American baseball, but it was very exciting.
Good stuff. Briefly, if you would, Sameena.
Yeah, I think the last year and everything that we've done has been a real highlight for me, because we've introduced in the last 2 years women's football into the game, particularly then this year women into Ultimate Team, and to be able to see that growth like in front of my eyes and be a part of that movement has been a real highlight for me. And you can now, like, you see on Twitter, or like you see kids walking up to like and understanding female players better through the game, and like opening up a whole new audience, which I'm really proud to be a part of in the game and everything we're doing, but also internally as well. We've built a bit of a group for FC that's just built around women, and the group has just grown and grown and grown because we've grown in strength. And we had a session the other day, and it's just so nice to sit there and think, well, how far have we come in the game and everything we're doing within women's football, but also within the organisation.
Brilliant, thank you. Bex, briefly, if you would.
Very briefly, I'd say there's not one particular pinpoint moment, but I would say that every time that I'm able to make a difference to someone, you know, whether it's a client or one of your colleagues, knowing that you as an individual have walked into an industry and made a difference in a small way, like that for me is just absolutely everything. So I can't pinpoint one particular moment, but there is, you know, certain circumstances where people's careers have been turned around because they've believed in the power of communication and PR, and being able to help manage that for them and see them on the other side achieving everything is really special.
Brilliant. Final word to you, Lois.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it would probably be a Saturday reflection day when, just in terms of the charity that I'm heading up now, on a weekly cycle, producing like 16 programmes, like I mentioned before, girls, women's, boys, older generation, disability, you name it. The Saturday when you've kind of completed that 5-week cycle of back-to-back programmes and realised how many people have either enjoyed football or have started up new that week, or etc. So it's probably an ongoing every Saturday at the moment for an ever-growing charity that I'm heading up.
Brilliant. And that is a great question. Thank you, Pippa, for wrapping up our session. Please, everyone, can you show your appreciation for Lois, for Rebecca, for Sameena, and for Maria?